Hey guys, so I thought I'd actually walk through our medicine cabinet today. And we have actually a more extensive medicine cabinet. We have an herbal cabinet as well, but it's kind of all pushed into cupboards and drawers. And eventually, as this house goes under renovation, we'll have a whole apothecary. So it'll be a place where you can actually make your own medicines and things like that, which is one of our goals. But one of the first things that we did when we got here was, had a little first aid kit for all different reasons. Scrapes and bruises and injuries happen. And also what we recognize is that there's no hospital within many, many, many miles. There's very few people who could come and actually pick you up. So in a way, you have to be self-sufficient with your medicines. And, anything that happened, just recently, with the pandemic, sometimes there were medicines not even on the shelves. So I think it's important to also have medicines on hand to treat yourself. So I will show you some of what we have in our cabinets. That's our snack drawer. Our snack drawer is next to our medicine drawer. All right, so this is our first medicine drawer. And we basically the first thing that we had was this little first aid kit. So just a general purpose first aid kit. So typically what's in it is some gauze and Q-tips, Band-Aids. We have a cold pack here, things along those lines. But we decided that we would actually get more because we've had a lot of injuries, bumps, and bruises already. Sonder being one of them. Crushed his thumb. Yeah, anyway. So we've gone through a lot of Band-Aids. We have all different types of Band-Aids. That's kind of your first thing, right? And we also have things for your blisters on the back of your foot. So we have a nice supply of that. I also put together this guide, and basically it's like a quick and easy herbal guide. And what I kind of determined is, what are some of those go-to herbs that we could use that are very multifunctional, that could be used across a wide range of illnesses or bumps and bruises? So like cuts, bruises, fevers, coughs, things that you might typically plague you. So I have a good collection of herbs. So these are tinctures, and I've tinctured some of my own as well, or made some of my own salves. But there's so much that I'm going to not touch upon, but I ended up getting a bunch of things, during the pandemic in case one of us got COVID, which actually, thankfully, supposedly none of us have gotten, or if we have gotten it, we don't even know that we had it. But basically, I got a bunch of immune tinctures, so echinacea, golden seal, propolis, which we have used already because sometimes we'd have like a sore throat or whatnot, and that's great for sore throat. So we have all those immunity boosters. We have turmeric. We have vitamin D3 in the liquid form, which we probably wouldn't need if we're spending a lot of time outside. You need 15 minutes of sunlight and you get your vitamin D, which we've been spending quite a lot of time out in the sunlight. But if you're in the winter and there's not a lot of sunlight, then, anyway. So we've definitely become more proactive with things along those lines. Elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, we have a bunch of that as well. Something common, if you're working outside and you're not drinking enough water, sometimes you'll get a little headache. Obviously drink enough water, but we have just standard pain relievers and headache medicines, your aspirin or Tylenol, whatever works for you. And then I also have like skullcap or other herbs like Botanica officinalis is a good one for, kind of bringing down a headache. Maybe you want to use it with like linden, something along those lines. Emergency eye wash. So if you get something in your eye, that's quite common. One time you weren't here and I had a bug fly into my eye and I couldn't actually, see where it was. So I wish I had this because you could just kind of squirt it out. Sometimes your eye will water itself, but if you get like a piece of sand or a piece of grit, or if you're working and you're doing the renovation and all of a sudden something comes back and you might not be wearing your eye guard, or maybe you are wearing your eye guard. I've often been out there kind of weed whacking, and then even though I'm wearing an eye guard, something else still gets into my eye. You say I weed whack wrong, so.
You mean glasses?
Yeah, your eyeglasses or eye guard or whatever. And I have like an anti-diarrheal. I actually picked this up like when I was traveling, so it's probably fairly old. I will keep some of my old like prescription meds or something along those lines if I don't use them, and I'll show you those afterwards. And by the way, I should say that this does not constitute any medical advice from us whatsoever. I'm just strictly walking you through our medicine cabinet to show you what we have, because for those of you who might be in a rural area, you might say, hey, you know, I need to actually, you know, get my medicine cabinet on. And you might find some things here that you would say, I wouldn't use that anyway, but you know, I just want to, you know, share that with you. And then we also have some gloves. So if you're, you know, touching something that might be a little contagious or infectious, like if somebody has like a staph infection or something of that nature, you don't want to be touching it with your hands and spreading it anywhere. So that's really important to have. You know, again, these are just saline solution. So if you need to wash off a cut really quickly or wash out your eyes, these are just like little ones. If you're traveling in the woods and you need just like a little first aid kit, you could just break off one of these and have something that's really lightweight. So that's why I liked these. It just wasn't in like just a giant bottle, which I do have. These are kind of like scarier, like scalpels. That's if you have to like really gouge or cut something out. Kind of like makes me sick thinking about it, but you know, it's better having something like that than not. And then this is, I think, really helpful. This is a micromend. So basically, if you get a cut, or say you had stitches and you knock them out or you cut them out too soon, this is basically a specialized Band-Aid that allows you to take the skin and bring it together so that that cut is not gouging open. And of course, like I wouldn't put this on something that's dirty. I would definitely clean out any cut that you have whatsoever first, but I thought this was actually very useful. And you know, you don't want to be too Debbie Downer, but you do want to think through scenarios of what you may use. Oh, and so what I want to show you here with this herbal guide is basically the way that I have this set up is like, you know, I want, you know, Sonder and Joey or anybody else who's here to be empowered to know what to do depending on what they have. And you know, obviously this doesn't cover every illness or injury, but you had texted me and you had crushed your thumb and like gouged open your thumb here, and you were kind of a little lightheaded and you texted me, but I didn't get the text. And then I saw it like maybe 30 minutes later, and then I called you and I was like, oh my goodness, what happened? And I told you to go outside and, you know, I explained the plant to get, Achillea millefolium, which is called woundwort or yarrow. Mash that up in your mouth and put it on there, because that's known as an astringent herb that really not only helps clean out the cut, but also helps to suture the cut together, which is pretty miraculous. And so that's why I have it as like a tincture here. You could have it as a fresh poultice. But basically, I just go through, you know, if you have a fever, if you have a cut, if you have a bruise, if you have disturbed sleep, if you have like hacking of the lungs. And then, you know, essentially, you know, page 1, fever, and it says, okay, well, if you have a flu with sudden and intense fever and chills, look for Achillea. If you have a fever with cool, clammy skin and sweat, then go to Monarda. And so basically I looked at the main herbs that we are utilizing and figured out which ones are the ones that are the most multifunctional. And I basically go through maybe 8 to 12 herbs in here that are very multifunctional. So for instance, that yarrow or that woundwort that I mentioned that you could put on your hand, it's also exceptionally good for fevers as well, and breaking, like helping break a fever quicker. So if you started to get into this like hot fever, you know, fevers are good because your body is healing, but if you want to catalyze that fever to go quicker, then you might reach for the yarrow in here as a tincture and maybe take, you know, 3 drops 3 times a day, for instance, or have it as a tea. So for instance, we have all of our dried herbs. This is just a really small selection, but this is one of our multifunctional herbs, like this yarrow. And I like to put this in with like maybe a Monarda or a spearmint and maybe some elderberry flowers. You could put some honey in it and you could heat that up. You know, we have a ton of teacups here and everything along those lines. So we usually keep that fresh. One thing that you really enjoy, especially when you're coming down for the day, you love chamomile. It really puts you out. For me, it doesn't have that kind of effect on it, but it is a very calming herb, and you could use it for many different conditions as well, especially if you like have nervous tension or anything along those lines, or you're restless at night. So we have a big tub of that, and we're starting to grow this fresh as well, both the Roman and the German chamomile. So I think that's really important to consider. Then we have this overflow, and Epsom salts are really great. Especially if you have a lot of tension, or if you sprained your ankle, for example, or you sprained your wrist or anything along those lines. So I have that here, and I have basically rosemary and mint, eucalyptus and spearmint and lavender, so that extra essential oils could be very calming or invigorating. And I also have a tea tree one, because this one is great if you have like foot fungus, which could also happen here because you're walking around in like maybe wet or sweaty shoes all day. You're working on your feet all day. Nothing's better than being able to just soak your feet, especially if you have like, a foot fungus and it's itchy or anything along those lines. I have a bunch of I guess these are like, wraps, like vet wraps. They come in all these different fun colors and everything along those lines. So again, if you have this cut and you need to keep it clean, you could wrap that around, so sometimes a Band-Aid won't do it. If you have like a sprained wrist, or even if you have a broken bone, you could create a splint and have one of those when you just have enough of it. I think we have enough for a long time. And then this is our next drawer. And there's lots of kinds of stuff in here, and I'm thinking of making these like plaques. They're organized, but I'm thinking of making these plaques so that if somebody gets hurt or is sick, they don't have to like rifle through this. If I told you, oh, it's like the third from the, I'm not going to remember where everything is, but they're loosely categorized. So here we have like a nasal spray, which is something that you've used. So if you get like allergies, or if you have like breathing problems or anything, that's here. And then these two are kind of this is for acid indigestion and relief, kind of a more digestive. This I absolutely love. So if you know that you're going to be eating a very heavy meal, or you're having acid reflux, or you need to like have good digestion, then this is great. And you can make this yourself. Like I've actually tinctured something very similar to this. So this has dandelion root, burdock root, orange peel, fennel seed, yellow dock root, angelica root, gentian root, and ginger root. And I have pretty much all of those ingredients to make something very similar to this. So any of those like any of those root herbs are very good for digestion. Milk thistle seed, this actually supports good liver function, and milk thistle seed has also been used that if you eat a poisonous mushroom, this could be part of the antidote for it. So again, something that could actually happen here, accidentally. So that's one of the things that's really important to have, I think, in the country. And then this is if you have like cough or hacks. This is not like your typical medicine. This is botanically based. So it has herbal remedies of like ivy leaf and things along those lines. Let's see what this is. Oh yeah, I have some Monarda tincture and everything along these lines. These are, again, one of my more multifunctional herbs. And then this is also if you're having like breathing issues, you have like your botanical vapor rub basically. So we have all different kind of versions of that in here. So like all these herbal chest rubs. And then this is for eyes again. So if you have allergies, so this one's pink eye, and then this one's allergy eye relief. And again, these are all herbal based. And then here's just your typical allergy relief tablets. And I got that mainly for Joey because he does have like really bad allergies, which could be also a sign that his liver is not functioning properly. So, you know, you might want to actually take some herbs that have an affinity towards your liver for that. These are some of the tinctures that I've made, and I just need like a better label for this. I actually have some, and I'm gonna put it, I didn't want to put it around the edge because I didn't want to get that sticky substance, but if I constantly use this one for hawthorn flowers, and then this one is hawthorn berries, and this basically has an affinity towards your heart. So essentially, if you are having heart palpitations or something of that nature, then you could actually go to the hawthorn. Uva ursi is more for like if you have a uterine tract infection or a bladder infection, or if you have kidney stones. And I have a bunch of that too. Ocotillo, gravel root, these are all things. I tinctured this and I got some others from other herbalists. And then this is kind of the stuff that we really oftentimes grab for. Basically Benadryl, triple antibiotic ointment. This is what I grew up with as a kid, and I wanted to search to see if we still have it out there, and we do. It's a drawing salve. So this is Porter's Liniment Salve. We kind of go back and forth whether it kind of has this very like musty smell, but it's like camphor like kind of smelling, and we go back and forth whether we like it or we don't like it. It's kind of got one of those like interesting smells that's very unique. But this is if you like have we put this on everything. Like if we saw a tick and we remove the tick, we'd put that on there. You know, if we had a splinter, it kind of like draws out because of the astringency, it kind of draws out. We also have another drawing salve here, which is Amish drawing salve, this, and I'll show you what Porter's Liniment Salve looks like. So you can see we've used that quite a lot. Even if we have like a cut or a wound, you know, these are the easy things to grab, especially if like, you know, this was, say you got that cut in the winter, well, the yarrow wouldn't actually be out there, you know, fresh yarrow, it would be buried under snow. So you'd have to go for something like this. Then we have poison ivy and oak soap, and then an EpiPen. So if somebody is allergic to getting a bee or wasp sting, you could actually, you know, give that to the person. And that's something that it's not like you have to get your doctor to prescribe that. So that's like one of the things that I'll talk about getting like some extra medicine that you have just as an emergency. Here's some more salves. Like this is another one that I made myself, calendula, comfrey, and St. John's wort. So that's like for burns, you know, bruises. If you come in and you got like a sunburn or anything like that, that's what I would recommend. And then I have a bunch of other, you know, salves for that. I have salves for like sore muscles, things along those lines. So let's go and talk about just having a supply of basically medicine that needs to be prescribed by your doctor typically. I was reached out by Jase Medical, and this has been founded by a board certified physician. And I just think it's a brilliant idea because we were already in the mindset of actually creating a little medicine chest for ourselves because, again, for many different reasons, in times of emergency, if, you know, our car breaks down, which happened, and we don't have another car and we can't get to a medical facility, if one of us doesn't have health insurance, which one of us actually doesn't have proper health insurance here, like what are the things that we could do in order to be able to be self-sufficient? And this was very interesting. So it has some steps involved, like you have to go through a consultation online, but basically they give you emergency medicine. And this one, I have 5 different types of medicines here, and these are basically for if you get a bacterial infection or if you step on a rusty nail and you don't have your tetanus shot, you know, these are basically medicines for that. These are typically ones that are prescribed to you by a doctor, but again, if you don't have a normal physician, If you can't get to a physician, then you work with this online physician with a consultation, and they prescribe you some of these medicines for backup, and that's what they're really used for, is for backup. So what I like about it is it creates this little easy to read emergency antibiotic guide. So it tells you what types of antibiotics you have. So you see amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, azithromycin, doxycycline. And if you had ever gotten a bacterial infection like I have, and you've gone to the doctors, oftentimes they will prescribe one of these things for you. You even had your wisdom teeth taken out and they prescribed stuff for you. You didn't take it because you didn't have any kind of pain or injury that was associated with it. But then you could go here and it says, okay, well, what are the contents by drug? And then, so if you would use amoxicillin if you had a bite wound. I like this, it says animal or human. I don't know what human is biting one another, but pneumonia or sinusitis. Now, if you had something like sinusitis, I might prescribe maybe an herbal remedy for that. But if you're coming on with a pneumonia or you did get a bite wound, well, then maybe this is something that you want to take sometimes in relation with an herb, as long as the herb doesn't detract from the allopathic drug that you're actually taking. And again, this does not constitute medical advice in any kind of way. This is just how I would be thinking through things if something happened here and we couldn't get medical assistance or medical help. So I really like this. I mean, I will actually provide a code because I think what they're doing is amazing. And as you'll find out, 80% of some of our ingredients in our medicines or allopathic medicines are manufactured abroad or made abroad. And that could put us into a really bad situation. So you might want to talk to your doctor and see if they could prescribe some medicines, or if you want to have an emergency stash. I think that's actually really important, especially if you're out in the country or if you actually need medicine and they're running out. And I know that there's been reports of that as well. So anytime we get prescribed something, we actually end up keeping it here, as long as you're not putting this out in the sun and you're storing it in a room temperature condition. These medicines could last for a while. So they'll still be pretty effective. Just don't have it out in the sun and storing in like hot or wet conditions. Carrying on, I have a lot more kind of in the, if you have a stuffy nose or if you have a cough or heavy mucus, because that's something that, you know, we get quite often here. So I have black elderberry syrup and some cough medicines there. And then of course, if you're cleaning out your wounds, you know, just typical hydrogen peroxide. I have iodine here. And then after sun gel, so aloe vera. I have some of this and also the refrigerator, so you could put it on nice and cool. And again, cleaning out wounds, sodium chloride. I have witch hazel, which people use as a toner as well. And sterile prep pads. So again, if you're traveling in the woods, you don't want to bring a giant bottle of isopropyl alcohol to clean things. So you might actually just want to take a couple prep pads. So I have some things that are really easy to take. Bug spray, which is good. And then this is Medipore, which is also very nice. It doesn't really stick. So say you get a big gash wound or something, and you can't put a Band-Aid over that because then there's a sticky part of the Band-Aid, right? Medipore is really nice because it's breathable. So it actually has pores, and then you could wrap it around your wound and it won't stick to the wound, but it will allow it to breathe, which is really important. And I absconded with this. I hope you don't mind. We've been using it for multiple things. It's kind of amazing. So this also is, tell me what this is, Sander.
This is
it's like for drywall, right?
Yeah, this is, I think, is for fiberglass. It's made of fiberglass, and it's to basically join together two sheets of either sheetrock or Durarock, which is cement board. So, but plaster. It basically, if you put plaster over this, it strengthens the joint.
Yeah.
It's like the rebar in concrete.
Honestly, this has been really helpful. It kind of sticks to itself, but it's not sticky. And we actually put it on our windows temporarily so that the birds don't hit the windows. It looks pretty terrible, but like we don't want any dead birds on our windows and we're replacing the windows. But I also was like, my God, this is perfect for like something that will stick to itself, but really not stick to the skin. And if you had to, again, create a splint or needed to wrap something really quickly, this is actually a great solution. So I ended up, taking that for our medical cabinet. Do with what you have. Body warmers, things along those lines. And I kind of wanted to show you this. I ended up getting like some silver medication. So this is for like wound gel. And you may have heard that like silver, obviously you could use gold, but they don't sell gold. Silver is usually the most commonly used. Sometimes you see copper to basically help seal wounds. And this is something special. This is something that my uncle used to manufacture. I mean, he's retired now, but he basically, if I might misspeak, but he basically patented the rate of ionic release of silver. And this was purchased, and probably still purchased by the US Army, basically for wound treatment. So it's just basically fabric that's infused with silver. And the way that he kind of described it to me, and the reason why silver works, is that everything has ions, and basically if you have a cut, the silver, when you put on the cut or the deep muscle bruise, is that it helps to create a bridge for that skin to heal faster, which totally makes sense to me. So this is often what they would use for like burn victims or people who have deep muscle gash tears or deep wounds. Now, sometimes I wouldn't put the silver directly onto a wound because it could discolor it. Some of that silver could come off. And it'll eventually clear off, but you kind of have that silver color for quite some time. So what I typically would do would maybe be cleaning out the wound, and sometimes I would put, like I told Sonder, put some of that Yarrow on that cut, and then actually wrap the silver, and then you could wrap it from there. So I feel very grateful that we actually have this. Again, we have some of the gel as well, so it really depends on the kind of injury that you have. Oh, I had somebody left this over at my house who stayed at my house at one time in Brooklyn. Liquid melatonin. So again, this is if you're having like a really sleepless night, which I typically don't, but there are some nights in there that I have sleepless nights. And I tried this once, and boy, oh boy, this knocked me out. It was kind of scary, actually. I was like, oh my God, I had like the best sleep ever. So, things like that are really important. And then I have other things like magnesium oil spray. So you might ask, well, what is this for? Well, if you have like cravings, like often like chocolate cravings, people get chocolate cravings. I had once had kale cravings. It was so strange, but kale, chocolate, they're typically high in magnesium. And magnesium is used to do at least 300 different functions within our body. So if we're short in, something within our body, then we might actually need to heighten it. So this is actually a magnesium spray that you put on your skin. And then I had, I was gonna show that I had potassium iodide. Now I'm like, where do I have that? Oh, here it is, potassium iodide. So God forbid if there's ever any kind of like nuclear explosion or whatever, this is great for radiation, or if you actually just went in for treatment for radiation. And this is particularly good for your thyroid. So it's not going to protect you from overall radiation, but it will protect your thyroid. So potassium iodide, that is definitely something that we have. And then I didn't say it, but we have a lot of ticks here, obviously. And you need to have a good pair of tweezers to be able to capture those ticks, and syringes and things along those lines. So, I mean, obviously I didn't go through everything that we have in our medical chest here, but I think it's just really important to be prepared for something, maybe not everything, but something, and is a good holdover. Maybe it will prevent you from having to go to the hospital because you could actually, or the emergency room either, because you could actually do it yourself. And looking into, I think, both herbal remedies as well as allopathic remedies, I think there's a place for both of those, and sometimes using them synergistically, sometimes using them separately. So, I'll have you determine what makes sense for you, but I would encourage you to look into some of the things that I showed you for your own medicine cabinet. And of course, if you have suggestions of things that maybe we should have in our medicine cabinet, I mean, obviously I don't want to overload it too much, but if you have suggestions, let us know in the comments below. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Let us know your herbal and medical preparedness stories and suggestions in the comments below so that others can benefit from your ideas. And if you find value in the videos we produce, consider supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, giving a thumbs up, and even donating. 10% of our Google AdSense revenue from this channel is reinvested back into our community here and is matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic, so your viewership and support really matters. In the meantime, we'll see you in the next episode.